All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Heather. Thank you for joining me. This is another episode of Campfire with another guest from Google. Heather McCormick is with us. Heather, would you mind introducing yourself and your current role at Google? And then we'll get
Yeah,
into all your background.
of
Before.
course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, I'm Heather McCormick. I'm based in New York City, but have an accent from Belfast in Northern Ireland, where the president recently visited. I think he was there yesterday.
Oh, was it
Um,
there? Oh, yeah, cool.
yeah, for the Good Friday Agreement. 25 years is the Good Friday Agreement. And my role at Google, so I'm the Global Product Marketing Manager for Google Cloud training and certification. So that's me.
And we have
Yeah.
Krista here joining us. Hey, Krista, thanks for joining.
Welcome.
Krista is one of our students. She's actually finishing, you won't believe this, but she's just finishing a 11-month journey with us,
Oh,
pretty
wow.
much taking everything we have to offer.
Awesome.
And we have NT Guru 5 from joining us from the Bay Area. So for those of you in the audience, if you're catching up, if you're new to this, you should know that we are lucky enough to have a wonderful partnership with Google, the Google Cloud team, Google Cloud and Google Learning team. That means that anyone who signs up for the full stack or front-end bootcamp will get the opportunity to learn Google Cloud using the Google Labs, Google Cloud Skills Labs. We also have a scholarship for women who want to join the world of tech. And this one is going strong. We just top up, in a way, the scholarship amount. So we just added another 100K to it very recently. So we're very fortunate that we're still going with this. And so Heather is really part of that series, really bringing that information, that all that knowledge about Google Cloud and why anyone actually who's looking into joining tech should care about that. But as you know, as we've talked about it, Heather, part of the ritual here is to not just to talk about, your current job, but really go back in history and talk about how you got there.
Yeah.
And as early as college, what did you do during college? How did you decide your next step?
Yeah.
And then how did you end up where you are right now? So, and we have April here. April was my guest last week. We had a lot of
Oh,
fun.
awesome. Back for more, April. Awesome.
Already good feedback on the Google Cloud Labs.
Oh, good, Krista. Yeah, it's always good to hear people have good experiences.
So, Heather, you didn't start in tech. You didn't start at Google at all.
No.
Do you mind sharing with us, once you finished college, like what was your path? What
Yeah.
were you about to embark on? What were the career that you were envisioning for yourself at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I actually, when I started at college, at university, I studied law and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer and fight for justice in the world and make it a better place. But quite quickly realized, I'm not sure whether I can do that. And I switched to political science and public policy because I thought that was the way to change the world and make it a better place. And so I always had this idea that after university and after graduating in political science and public policy, that I would become a politician. I would shape policy, education, access to training, all of the things that I work in now. I thought I would be doing that as a politician. Think about schooling, early stage and education as well, because I have this passionate belief that education is the greatest equalizer and opportunity for all. And so whenever I graduated, I started in politics down in London. So in England, working at the Houses of Parliament in Westminster, I was a political researcher and doing an awful lot of paperwork and sort of, I would say, bureaucracy, maybe,
How was it?
rather than the sort of work that I wanted to do and like shaping policy. And so I thought maybe that's not for me. And so then I had a stint in youth work and thought maybe that's the way to make a difference and really engage with young people and get to know them and their ambition and where they want to go and how I can empower them to get there. But it doesn't pay a lot. And so I had a summer in Washington, D.C., and it was actually Accenture were offering sort of mentorship and skills development for students like me. And so I got the opportunity to meet with someone who became a great mentor to me, Laurie Johnson, still in touch with her. And she's a passionate learning leader as well. And
Is she watching you right now? Do you know
I
if
don't
she's
know. I'm definitely going to share
Laurie,
this
if you're
with
out
her.
there.
I'm giving her a shout out. But Laurie really took on mentoring me, and she offered to look at my resume. I'd never considered myself as someone who'd work in business or in tech. I always thought I'd work in nonprofit and kind of more policy space and research. And so that having a mentor really opened my eyes to like, there's stuff here in your resume that's really transferable. Your communication skills, your project management skills, your ability to like organize, event plan, things like that. That it was then Laurie who referred me for a role at Accenture. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what Accenture was. I didn't know what they did. I was working in business process outsourcing, doing proposal writing. So building on my writing and like written communication, like as some of my core skill set I still love to this day. That was my entry into tech consulting, let's say, back in 2011, I think.
So let's pause right here because you went over very quickly a few things that I want to actually ask
great.
you questions
Sorry.
because I'm really curious. You worked as a researcher, and I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. Parliamentary researcher in the House of Commons.
Yes.
You don't see that very often on anyone's LinkedIn or resume. And I know you kind of glossed over. You said, hey, it wasn't that what I was expecting. But I want to ask you, so did you have one research project that you can share with us?
Yeah.
Was there something that, it sounds super exciting. Like one of those things that, you remember reading about, or you see in the movies, you create a great amount of research and that comes out into a law or something.
Thank you for taking me back. I actually do have one. I actually influenced a piece of legislation for empowering local communities. I think it's called an early day motion. It was just before Parliament shut down because there was a change in the administration and a coalition government back in 2010. And we had the opportunity to basically push a bill through, which had cross-party support, so bipartisan support. And I kind of got to write the piece of legislation that went through into law for basically empowering more local community decision making and how they spent budget in local government, but it was like a national policy and piece of legislation. So I remember at the time as like a political science student thinking that's kind of cool to do that
It
as
is.
like a 22-year-old.
Exactly,
Maybe
right?
I glossed over, sometimes you deal with some really interesting constituent issues that make you think, is this how I'm going to change the world? But then that was one of the sort of, I guess, inspiring moments. And then my minister, when he moved into office, he got a position in the Foreign Office. And so there was some really interesting stuff in the Middle East and Africa, more from like a policy and diplomacy perspective that I got to be a part of the team, I would
That's
say. At that
good.
stage, I was still learning a
Yeah.
lot. And there's kind of book knowledge, and then there's like on the job knowledge. And
Uh-huh.
it's a super dynamic space to be in. And at times, I must say, I felt like super overwhelmed and like, oh my goodness, are they asking me for the answer here? But it was a great opportunity and a real sort of stretching time as well. So yeah, I
Were you
definitely.
overworked? Like, is it like in the movies again, where you're supposed to work like 14 hours a
Oh,
day and overnight to come up with legislation and all of
oh
that, or was it
boy.
more relaxed?
um, I'm sure for some folks, like, yes, I think I had a great sort of work environment and manager who showed more of a balanced way of doing things. But I think once you're in office, so it's a different thing when you're in opposition, right? Because you're just sort of criticizing, oh, like if we were in power, we'd do it this way. But once you actually are in power, right, and you have
Okay,
ministerial
yeah.
responsibilities, at that point, that yeah, there's more work to be
You
done,
have
but
to
you
get
get
stuff done. Yeah,
a
I got
bigger staff to sort of support with that as well.
that's good.
So from the civil service. So yeah, I think it certainly wasn't like the West Wing. I think that's
Yeah.
what I was like expecting, that
Mhm.
kind of dynamism. But I'm sure there were corridors of power within, House of Commons, House of Lords, Downing Street, where they were working the late shift. But for me, I probably had that more whenever I moved into consulting.
Yes, with
Yeah.
Accenture. Okay, so one last question around that. So, did you see people voting on your piece of legislation? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
Like,
in the House of Commons.
oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, exactly. So that was again special, right?
Mm.
You kind of have your yays and your nays,
Yeah.
and the if folks are familiar with the kind of voting process over there. But yeah, I did. I got to see that again just before Parliament. They basically, when it's a change in government, Parliament ceases for the switchover. But that was before then, and it just felt like a cool moment. I
It
was sitting in
was
the
probably
gallery.
very cool. I'm
Um,
glad. I'm glad we got to get into it a little bit more.
yeah.
But what I'm getting from you as well on this aspect of your journey is it's always been about helping others through education, and you can connect that straight to what you're doing now, right? It's always how can I make an impact
Yeah.
through education and kind of trying to find that right way of making an impact. I'm saying, all right. So thank you for sharing more of that. Accenture. So we also have a partnership with Accenture.
Awesome.
Um, it's an unbelievable company. They have it may have changed recently, but 500 million employees. Can you believe that? It's huge. But tell us about. I mean, at the time, what were they doing? Yeah, let's go back to that moment.
Yeah.
What were they doing? You were still in London, or did you?
Yes,
Yes.
I was in Dublin first, and then
Yeah.
I relocated to London,
Okay.
um, sort of different roles over the 6.5, 7 years that I was there. And I think that was one of the great things about a place like Accenture is there's such variety and there's so much that the business does, that partly for me, it was like this sort of accelerated business education on the job, right? I was getting paid, but I was also learning a lot about initially business process outsourcing. So if you ask me what my dream job was, being a proposal writer to win new contracts for outsourcing, perhaps wouldn't have been something on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had a mentor and someone who believed in me and believed in my skills, who was willing to give me an opportunity when honestly, it was a really hard job market. So 2008 financial crisis.
Ooh, yeah.
And then I'd sort of worked in politics, then worked in youth work and nonprofit. It's really tricky to get a job in nonprofit, basically. And I had my like top degree, and I'd been a sort of high achieving person, and so it was tricky for me to be like, well, why am I not getting these jobs that I thought were the dream jobs? But interestingly, what opened up for me at Accenture was a lot of great opportunities to learn, and a bunch of wonderful and super smart people to do it with. And I learned so much. So business process outsourcing, we have, or within Accenture, there are sort of delivery centers for offering these standard functions of any business: finance and accounting, recruitment, customer care, elements of HR, like things that we were offering to multiple customers to run it for them over longer term contracts, 5-10 years. And so my role was to like pull together all the information about how Accenture's team and delivery centers had the capability to do it. And I learned a bunch. Truly, I tell you, like talking about it now, it's like embarrassing how little I knew, but how willing everybody was to like answer my
Yeah.
questions, explain things to me, give me time, invest in me. I got the opportunity, I guess, so I did like 18 months in that role. And then I got to work in like sales enablement and like more with like a team who were responsible for like all the content that we used across Accenture, so across the whole business in the UK for winning new work. And then I moved into a marketing role because I'd worked really closely with marketers trying to win new
So
business.
before you
Yep.
go there, I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
because you just said something about you were very fortunate to have people who will allow you to ask questions.
Yeah.
And you felt like you could actually do that. I know that's something that a lot of aspiring developers, a lot of the people who want to change careers experience as well in their
Yeah.
first job, and it's connected with the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you don't necessarily belong, and you can drown by just being paralyzed by it and not ask questions and not seek to learn or not. So what would you say to people who are like you, just change careers and from something that's not necessarily is connected with one another?
Mhm.
How do they ask those questions in a way that make them feel okay to ask them as well? Like, how do
Yeah.
you feel empowered, in a sense, to ask all those questions and, in a way, show your vulnerability, in not knowing the answer? How do you do that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I will say, you know, there are still times I struggle with imposter syndrome in some rooms that I go into where everybody knows more than me
Mm,
about a topic. But I've always been encouraged by folks saying, but there's things, Heather, that you know a lot about that you can offer to the room. And there's a way to tap into the expertise of others and say, oh, I'd love to learn more about that. And actually, I have an interesting perspective as well on this based on my own sort of experience, expertise. And so I would say, um, it's bravery to ask the questions, but it's actually in your best interest. And people love to help out.
yeah,
People love to be asked their opinion, asked their expertise, and listen to. Like, oh my goodness, you're talking for an hour with me about me. Wonderful. People
yeah,
love the opportunity to share what they know. And the second thing I'll say is, relationships and like building those mentors and relationships of trust, where
mhm,
it's like I know I can go and like have just maybe after the big meeting I can go and have like a one-to-one and say, hey, listen, I just wanted to like ask a little bit more about that topic that
mm,
we were discussing, because maybe there wasn't time in a big room or like with lots of people who maybe I didn't know everybody there. But if you have that kind of psychological safety with mentors, with coaches, with buddies, even with peers, I think it's really great to like build that network of
yeah,
folks as
that's a
well.
great suggestion. Yeah, don't necessarily expose yourself. If you don't feel confident in a big room, but if you can follow up afterwards, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. We'll ask. There's a few questions here that I want to get to.
Yeah.
April just mentioned earlier. that she had her first nano degree with Udacity with Google. So
Mm,
that's great. And then, but there's a
awesome.
follow-up question here um, from her. Is Google still offering scholarships?
Ooh,
So we
great
have one,
question.
but beyond that, beyond the one with Nucamp, do you know if Google is still offering scholarship outside of that?
It's a good question. I know we've got multiple programs that are running throughout the year. I know this is just like an interesting time overall in the tech industry. I don't actually know specifically, like, is there a scholarship you're referring to, April? But certainly, like, we try and keep everything up to date for all those different programs across Google Cloud. I'm most familiar with Google Cloud and what we offer there in terms of technical residencies. I probably can't speak more broadly about the scholarships. I know we still run internship programs, which are paid placements as well. As there's a bunch of resources that across Google we're offering at no cost to help folks who want to upskill, want to get into roles. So I probably can't answer the specifics of like one particular scholarship, but it sounds like Ludo, for the one that you're running with women tech makers, I think
Yes.
you're topped up anyway.
We have one there. I think there's a ton of things happening as well with Grow with Google.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know if it's
exactly.
scholarship
Yes,
or just very affordable access to education in general.
yes.
Okay, that's great. There's, I don't know if it's a real question. I think there's a smiley, so it may not be, may just be a kind of a joke a little bit. Um, you probably missed the beginning where you explain where your accent is coming from. If you want to share
Yes,
it.
I can explain. It's a very interesting hybrid accent because I grew up in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've lived in Dublin, so in the south of Ireland, London in England, and Edinburgh in Scotland. And I now live in New York City. And so I think I've been Americanized a little bit.
So
Um,
when people in New York try to figure out your accent, where do they think you come from?
Sometimes they think Australia,
I was gonna say
yeah, and sometimes South
New
Africa.
Zealand, New
Yeah.
Zealand, maybe as well. Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, Kiwi. I'm happy to take any of them.
Yeah.
Physically, they're like, she's not quite American, but we can't place her.
Yeah, Mel is commenting on a point you were making
Mm.
earlier.
Totally agree, Mal. I mean, leaning into the discomfort is something I still have to like even this, I was nervous about this today. But actually now being here and having the chat and being able to chat with Ludo just a bit before, it's like, oh, okay, no, this is good. But you lean into the discomfort and actually you find you stretch and you grow as well. So totally agree, Mal.
I'm stressed as well every time I do one of these, but
Oh
then
no.
well, a little bit. It's getting better, but but yeah, that's something you have to get used to. And then, oh yeah, after a few minutes, it's doing better. Hey, Candice, good to see you here. All right, so let's resume our conversation. I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile again. So you joined Accenture working on BPO deals, big BPO deals. But then you evolved, right, at Accenture. You
Yeah.
didn't stop there. Can you share with us? Well, that's when you got into marketing. But if you look at your background,
Mm,
like it's not obvious that you're a marketing person. You didn't
no.
have a marketing, degree or anything. So help us understand how you go from being a politician or lawyer and politician or with the will of helping through education
Yeah.
to building giant business proposals and then getting into a marketing position and building those skills. Can you, yeah, walk us through that if you don't mind?
Yeah. I will say, I don't know that all of this was by design,
Uh-huh.
So if you asked me in 2009 when I graduated, tell me what the next 10 years of
Yeah.
Heather's career is going to look like. I don't know that I had a plan of what that was going to look like. But looking back, there are some like common threads about me and what I like to do. I like to take on new challenges. I like to sort of constantly have something that's like ooh, I haven't tried that before. I want to learn. I want to grow. And so I'd say I'm kind of a generalist in a lot of ways. So you're right. I don't have like a marketing qualification, but I was able to work alongside really talented marketers and learn a bunch from them, and also then start to upskill myself, right? And I think that was really important for me in changing roles in a place like Accenture. It's as much about relationships, and like if people
Mm,
have positive relationships working with you and can see your transferable skills, they're more likely to give you an opportunity. And that's how I actually moved into marketing at Accenture, was because I was working alongside some folks in my role in sales enablement. And I had a positive relationship working with the marketing team, so that whenever an opportunity came up on that team, they said, oh, do you know who'd be great? We should talk to Heather. And I did an interview and they sort of asked me about my marketing experience. And I was like, oh, I've done a website. I was sort of like scraping the barrel of like, I think I can learn this stuff. Like, I've done a lot of copywriting, I've done a lot of communications, I can do market research.
mhm,
And so oftentimes I think it's one, relationships, right? And like be someone who's great to work with,
mm,
regardless of the project that you're working on, and recognize that like you take those relationships with you. Like, I'm still in touch with people who were great mentors. Even the person who interviewed me at Accenture offered to be my mentor whenever I joined. He was like a senior director, which is
mhm.
pretty unheard of. I was like coming in at the bottom and he was like pretty senior. I was like, wow, okay, cool. But like these are people that, like, these relationships last much longer than any one job role. And someone said to me, like, one job role is not your career. And so think more about the people that you get to work with in any particular role. They can be super helpful to you as you build and grow your career. Even next week, like I'm meeting with I mean, now she's the CMO of Accenture, but at the time
Oh,
she was chief brand officer.
mm,
Whenever I was working at a project in the innovation center. And so again, that's a relationship that 5 years later, I'm here in New York City and, we get to go for breakfast. And so I think those I would say, like, be someone who's great to work with, and also be someone who's really intentional about your relationships, not for what you can get out of them, but like for just the value
yeah.
of like the people that you get to work with, right? Because ultimately work is work, but it's the people that make it.
Yeah, and you talked about transferable skills and
Mm,
mentorship, and really making sure that you stay connected. This is so relevant as well to anyone who wants to join, tech, and
yeah,
really thinking about a career. Even more, I would say, in the current economic environment, right? Like
yeah,
where it's harder to get a job, it's harder to make your way. And oftentimes we tell, our audience, okay, you're going to learn to code, you're going to learn to be a web developer, but what's going to get your first job? Like, it's going to be a given that you know how to do that. What's going to get your first job?
mm,
It's going to be beyond that, and it's going to be exactly what you described. It's first bring your whole self to the position. Like
yeah,
what you did before matters as much as your new technical skills.
hmm,
What are your transferable skills? How do you present yourself?
yeah,
What's your passion? And then build those mentorship relationship. That's so so
yeah,
important.
totally.
We have Candice sharing with us.
um,
Multi. I've never
yeah,
heard
yeah.
something like that. You're a multi-passionate professional.
I want to put that on my resume, please,
Yeah, it's pretty
Candice.
cool, huh?
That's awesome.
LinkedIn headline: I'm a multi-passionate professional.
That's great.
Thank you, Candice. I hope you don't mind. We're going to steal it.
Yeah.
Uh, be someone who is intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the trick. It feels, and I'm an introvert myself, but it
Mm,
feels so easy. My wife is an extrovert, and it feels so easy for extrovert to do everything you just described. And I don't know if you're introvert or more extrovert. I'm not going to ask, but how it feels unfair a little bit because it's so much harder for introverts to do all the things
mm,
you're describing. Do you have any tips? Do you have any, like, are there, things that you can uh, make it part of a routine so that you don't have necessarily to force yourself into it, and it just happens to be part of a process. But
Mm.
how do you do it if you're not naturally good at it?
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I am actually an introvert. So
Are
even though
you?
like I
I
have
would
all of
have
this
never guessed.
energy, yeah, and a lot of people say that. So I'm much better sort of one-to-one than I
Mhm.
am in group settings, and often
Yeah,
I'm perceived as someone who is quiet when things get larger.
yeah.
So that's why it's slightly this like
Oh, you are an
experience.
introvert. Yes, I can. Okay, I relate.
Um, Whereas I would say things to build into practice, like I say, is investing in those one-to-one
Yeah.
relationships is really important. And, if you can manage to do that, whether it's just like a weekly coffee or like a virtual catch up or
Mhm.
whatever, having some of those people who then, whenever you go into the bigger meetings, they're like your hype person, your confidence buddy, the person who'll say, "Oh, Heather, you've worked on a project like that. Could you share a little bit more?" So using both the opportunity to be an advocate for others and like hold space for others and offer like the invitation for others to speak who maybe, based on your one-to-one relationship, they're not going to speak unless they're invited to speak.
Mhm.
And also, I think this is really interesting in the context of like virtual meetings with like some folks in the room, some folks virtually. I think we actually have to be more intentional about inclusion, because we can have a tendency that like if someone's sitting next to us that we can just switch ourselves on mute and just have a side conversation, but actually someone else is speaking, and so making sure our manners are kept really well, actually, and particularly like if you're speaking over someone but you're just on mute, that's really rude.
Mhm.
And if you're doing something else, why did you come to the meeting?
Yeah.
You have something else that's more important to do. And we actually had a coach recently, her name is Sarah Yao, do some work with us around presence and what it is to show up. And whether you're introvert or extrovert, offering yourself as fully present for virtual meetings, in-person meetings, so your full focus is on that one thing, is incredibly valuable, regardless of whether you find like relationships or like, naturally building rapport with people. People will notice if someone puts
I
their
was going to
laptop
say,
on and doesn't look at their phone and looks in the camera during a virtual meeting when everyone else is off camera, or people are busy tapping away. They will notice the people who are present in the room, and whether you're introvert or extrovert. And there's moments when you can speak up, and use the functionality of some of the technology, raise your hand, use emojis, use the chat, like find other ways that maybe feel perhaps more comfortable than like coming off mute and sort of declaring, okay, this is my perspective, would be some of the things I'd
yeah,
suggest.
it's a very good point. Once in a while, you are you can talk with someone who I would call it intense listening. When you
Yeah,
find someone who's listening to you with intensity, and I know it can sound bizarre, but you see it, right? You know what someone is so listening to what you're trying to say. You pay attention to that person, and actually that person, you give that person a lot of respect for
yeah.
doing that intense effort of listening to you. You
Mm,
can do the same, and you're right, it's so rare that actually you'll be noticed by doing that.
mm-hmm.
So this is great. So uh Antigo says both of you do not seem like
Uh,
I bet you after this is over, we're gonna not gonna
I'm,
talk to
yeah,
anyone for like an hour,
yeah.
maybe have a glass of wine or something like that, and then we'll be back. We'll be better. But yeah, that's great. Let's actually go through the chat real quick. Hype moment for people I know.
Oh, I love it, Krista. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we talk about it here. I help with this workshop. It's called I Am Remarkable. And it's about like making sure you're an advocate for yourself and your own achievements, but also that you're ready to hype on someone else and actually recognize, celebrate, share, and call out the great work that others do, and make sure that folks are aware of that. So I love it whenever people are like dedicated hype people.
Awesome. And then we have Candices, be fully present, that's
Mm,
good. Mel is commenting as well. Build the trust.
yeah.
Krista is an extrovert. I didn't know, Krista, you were an extrovert. Ambivert. I didn't.
Oh,
Oh,
all
really?
right.
I'll have to look that up.
I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah.
All right. So we've talked. It was really great. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that
Thank you
insights
for
and
listening.
how you're building those relationships. So you are Accenture. You are marketing manager. How did you get into Google from there? And then let's talk about the topic at hand, the demand for cloud skills.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that? So
Yeah.
walk us through how you go from Accenture.
Mhm.
So you have all those skills now. You have on paper you're a marketing manager now. How do
Yes.
you get into Google? And what do you do now? What's your job at Google?
Yeah. So I decided to take a little career break after Accenture. So everyone was like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "I'm not sure, but I think I just need to take a bit of time to like say, is this what I want to do?" Because sometimes when you're working in those bigger companies, you just sort of go with the flow of like, okay, on to the next thing and progression and more money and more responsibility. And then you're like, I don't know if I want this. So I took a bit of time off. I spent a bit of time in East Africa and Kenya and Ethiopia with an education charity that I've been on the board of, Many Hopes. And I just like it reignited for me like my desire to do education work. I didn't know whether that at that stage I didn't know was that in a nonprofit kind of capacity. Or research or in like education department, something like that, or whether there was a world where I'd return to tech and professional services. So I took that time, and I must say it was it's a luxury. I get that. I'd saved money over the years that I'd been working at Accenture, so I was able to do that and support myself. But it really offered me the opportunity to just take a step back and be like, what do I want to do in my next role? Like, what sort of company, culture, values, leader, team, what all of those things, like as you grow in your career, you can start to like see, oh, here's the common thread. Here's when I'm really motivated. Here's when I really show up. And so I recognized that I wanted to continue to like support nonprofit. I served on the board of a couple of charities, but that I was keen to return to the sort of corporate environment. And so I was able to go and do some contracting short term at Accenture for a little bit. And then this is the cool thing. On LinkedIn, someone reached out to me and was like, hey, would you be interested in this contractor role? It's in education marketing at a global tech company. I sort of thought, oh, well, yeah, like I'd love to hear more because I'm really interested in education. I've got a career now in marketing, I guess. And then when they told me, oh, yeah, it's for Google Cloud in EMEA. So it was a training and certifications campaign manager in EMEA. And at that stage, I was in London. I thought, this is awesome. Like, is this a joke? Wow. So what I would say is like, just make sure that LinkedIn profile is up to date, because it can be a very powerful tool for finding opportunities, but also for recruiters to find you. And so I started there as a contractor a vendor, I should say, back in 2019, January 2019. And I
right
loved
before COVID.
Sorry, right before COVID.
Right?
Yeah, who knew that a year later the world would shut down? And I will say the things that made that environment just such a joy for me, like company culture really matters, and who you work with and who, like the team that you're a part of. As much as the work itself, it's that combination of things, right? And I really lucked out. I had just an incredible manager who was so empowering and like give me really fun work to do, but like let me get on and do it, or like come back if I needed support. So Denise was just like a great mentor and leader to me, but also like recognized and respected, oh yeah, she knows how to do marketing, so you go on and do it. And so it was just super fun that I got to do that at Google, right? Like I honestly, I think I certainly had it in mind like years ago of like, that's such a cool company. Like, could I ever work there? And then to actually get to do that, right? To go into the office was kind of like pinch me. Still to this day, I sort of feel that way. It's just a great opportunity. So I started, and then in 2020, in January, some headcount on the team became available, so I could become like a full-time employee there. And so I signed my contract, I think, on the 17th of March, 2020, and started a week later. So it was like, as the world shut down with the pandemic, like globally, I got to work remotely, work from home with Google. And at
you
that,
were still in London? You didn't
I
move
was still in London,
in
but
London.
I was in a global role. So
Yeah.
that was interesting from a time zones
Yeah.
perspective. And I did that. I worked from home. I actually went back to Belfast. And had some time with my family, which was really special. But yeah, I got to do that role in kind of global product marketing, but still in the training and certification space as well. So yeah, that's kind of the
Cool.
journey. Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So let's dive into the topic of cloud marketing.
Yeah.
Um, what is your, and I'm reading the title of our webcast right now.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on the demand for cloud skills?
Yeah. Well, actually, this might be a good little cue to pull up
There you
this
go. That's
Google
right.
Trends
Let's do this.
little search that I did the other day. Just I was sort of wondering over time. This is like a tool that anyone can take a look at. You can see what people are searching for on the Google search. And so I put in like the keywords cloud skills and Google Cloud Skills. And this sort of shows you over the past 5 years worldwide how people have started to search for cloud skills, right? And the growth in cloud skills, you'll see that kind of like upward trend in
Yeah.
like the
Like around September 2021. I mean, it was kind of growing, but then it's really kind of spiked.
Exactly. It really started to spike basically because during the pandemic, a lot of companies had to invest in their cloud infrastructure to be able to continue to run their businesses, right? And everybody had to collaborate remotely. And so whole enterprises, organizations were trying to think, okay, like we need a cloud strategy, we need that technology and that infrastructure, but quite quickly after, we need people who know how to use that technology and make the most of it for our businesses. So I find this really interesting. I like the blue line is like cloud skills overall. And then I was obviously, because of my role, I'm really interested to make sure that people have Google Cloud skills to help them in their career now and into the future. And so just seeing that like trend over time, I think if you like scroll down, or maybe I scroll down here, one second. Yes, let me do that. You can see a little bit more about like where the greatest interest is across the globe. And then you can see like what across like Microsoft, Google Cloud,
That tells you right here who's your number one competitor in a way.
Yeah. I mean, we're all friends in the skilling space, right? Because it's super helpful. I think whenever I would say like having a multi-cloud skill set is really super important. So you're actually very employable if you know how to build on multiple clouds. And so that's just something, I guess we can move off this screen, but I would say the demand for cloud skills and like people searching for cloud skills in these past 2 years has grown significantly as more and more businesses have invested in cloud technology. And so there are a lot more roles and demand for those cloud roles. And I know the boot camps, that you focus on are in that kind of web developer, front end, back end, full stack. But there are many roles that exist today that like 5 years ago, people would be like, what? DevOps engineer, security engineer, ML engineer, machine learning and AI, generative AI. I mean, there's a space if you want to like future-proof your career. go get the skills, go play with the technology that's out there. It's just a massive space that's like hard to avoid, right? Just how much the technology is growing and continues to grow in that space. So being someone who is agile and adaptable to saying, ooh, like that's interesting, new technology. How can I upskill to get that role or to grow in, like, from the role that you might have in a technical setting? Maybe you're an application developer, but how could you become like a cloud developer, and or maybe you're a database administrator, like how could you become a database engineer? And so a lot of what we do in Google Cloud is we're trying to develop role-based learning paths to help you with those in-demand job roles. And we have a combination, and it's great. I think someone, maybe Krista, I said up front, just the labs that we offer, that's kind of hands-on opportunity to build in Sandbox. So you're in console, but you're not like burning through your credits to be able to like,
it's a big deal. It's a
big
deal.
Yeah. And I think that's like one of the really great things that these learning paths offer, that kind of hands-on labs, as well as then some of the more like video-based quizzes, things like that, to sort of validate your knowledge. And we recognize that everybody learns in different ways and different preferences for learning, but certainly we've seen just a huge spike in demand, even for our certification portfolios. So we have 11 certifications, and they're role-based certification exams that folks can take across the associate cloud engineer and then the professional portfolio.
So what is the difference between an associate certification and a professional certification?
Yeah, so associate is one that we would say is good sort of entry-level, foundational, if you're in a computer science like technical practitioner role.
It's more appropriate for beginners if you're actually starting.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a good pathway towards then if you wanted to go for the professional cloud architect as a next step there. And we would recommend a certain amount of experience that you have, maybe 6 months working with cloud technologies before taking the associate cloud engineer.
6 months is not too long.
No, whereas our professional certification exams, we'd say more like 18 months in the role using the technology. Because for these certification exams, we say you can't just take the training and be ready to like pass the exam. You really have to have hands-on experience using the technology as well. So that's why I guess it's a combination with learning, hands-on, watch some videos, do some boot camps, but then like go play with the technology, right? And labs provide a great way to do that. So
we have a question from Candice on this topic. Which cloud skills have you seen that could be the most valuable for full stack web developers?
Ooh, wow. I mean, yeah, I would say a lot of the stuff that we have for cloud developers, like we have a cloud developer learning path, which is a great place to start. I don't know if I can pull it up, but
you want to look it up?
Yeah, let me try and do that.
See who.
1 second.
You probably know where it is more than.
Yeah. I'll I think I can share this tab.
Okay.
If that's showing up for you.
It's showing up. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then I would say a good place like the cloud developer or DevOps are basically like cloud native applications. So like this is an interesting like space to go into, I would say, just to understand like core infrastructure, developing applications, and doing it with cloud technology using Kubernetes. Again, that kind of multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and deployment as well. These courses are a really great place to start. And then these quests are basically like a collection of labs that you can do, and you earn skill badges whenever you complete like the labs as well. So I would say you can jump in anywhere. That's probably like a good place. Cloud Skills Boost is a nice place to start.
Yeah. We use some of those in our
Yeah.
bootcamp actually.
Oh,
It's a very good
awesome.
application. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Cool.
There's another comment from Mel here.
Yeah.
Um, oops, no, not wrong one. There we go. And I'm gonna remove your.
Oh my gosh, awesome, Mel.
So what is
Congrats, Cloud
your
Architect.
main? What
Very
is
difficult.
professional what? Cloud. Oh,
Architect.
ooh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've
Yeah.
heard. I can't take it. But it's a very difficult one. Yeah, definitely. What I will say is like these certifications are intentionally challenging,
Yeah.
right? But if you go on like Mel to earn one, they can be great for your career opportunity, career progression. I think Professional Cloud Architect was one of the like top paying certifications in IT, certainly top 10 in the past few years. I know we've been like 1 and 2 for several years, but I think investing in certifications for your own career can be a really worthwhile endeavor, but also just that skilling and the labs, the boot camps, they're great ways to just like get straight in and get the opportunity to learn and then go apply it, right?
Yeah, nice.
And then these credentials, so something like a certification is really high value credential, but what we're trying to do now is say there's lots of like micro credentials or like badges that you can
the course that you just showed us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So courses, you'll get like completion badges that you can share, or and that's when you've like viewed a course. And then labs, or if you've done like challenge labs, that's when you can earn these skill badges that really validate, hey, Mel knows what she's doing and she has the skills here and she can apply it. And you can start to list that kind of stuff on your LinkedIn, again, because there is such demand. And that's the thing employers are most concerned about, is they've invested in this cloud technology. Mm-hmm. And the ramp time is going to be delayed because they can't get the talent. And so we made a commitment as Google Cloud back in, I want to say 2021, to upskill 40 million people with cloud skills. And we're like working tirelessly towards that goal. Like we really care that like as much of it is as broadly accessible to the greatest number, but also we want to make sure that like when we've developed this training, we need to be aware like of non-traditional backgrounds or like folks who are career switchers, people like me, for example. Mm-hmm. I can't do a lot of these super technical trainings, but what I can do is our Cloud Digital Leader training, which is a series of 4 free on-demand courses, and there's an associated certification exam, but it is for non-technical professionals.
So that's a good one. Who's the targeted audience for that particular one? Like is it a manager in a tech company or any manager? Like who who actually will benefit from it?
So we would say is anyone who's in like a tech adjacent role. So they might be working with software engineers or product managers, and they're in the cloud space, but they want to understand like, well, what's the deal with Google Cloud, and like what are the products, and how would this like impact the business, or like what's the like transformation story with introducing cloud technology into the business, and then what's the suite of like Google Cloud technology. So it's super helpful, I would say, for folks who are working alongside individuals in the cloud technology space, and then there's some other sort of foundational stuff that we offer, which is more like a introduction to the technical element in the Google Cloud Computing Foundations, or getting started with Google Cloud, that learning path as well. But that's really to take you down a more like technical job role.
Let's go back to the questions. And by the way, Mel, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you recently joined us as an instructor. Am I correct, or am I dreaming that up? I think you are. I think you recently joined. So thanks for being on the stream as well. And really great to have you share your background with us. Krista just completed the serverless lab.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Krista's awesome. Like, I'll go for
yeah. she's on it. And then Krisa, nice plug. Thank you, Krisa.
Oh,
Do
yes,
you know each other?
exactly.
You may know each other, no? Don't you? Do you know Krisa? I don't know.
I
Maybe.
don't think I've met Krisa,
So
but
Krisa is in our team,
yeah.
and she's a Google ambassador. Is that
Awesome.
yeah? Google Women in Tech ambassador as well.
Oh, yes, a Women Tech Makers
Women Tech
ambassador.
Makers. No, sorry. Yeah, Women Tech
Yeah,
Makers ambassador.
awesome.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, and we're helping meet that goal. And
Absolutely, yeah, and we're so grateful, right? I think it takes this is a global effort and endeavor, and partnerships are like so important for us to reach this goal. Like
yeah,
we won't do it alone, and so it's great to have the opportunity to partner with
right.
Nucamp and others to reach that 40 million goal.
That's awesome. Yes, and I was correct, Mel. Thank you for being here, Mel. And then Candice. Oh, that's awesome. Congrats, Candice. You just
Nice.
deployed a React
This is an
app on Google
impressive
Cloud.
group. Wow.
I have to say, it's one of the easiest way to deploy to the web. And I'm not kind of being, trying to advertise for Google. We believe so. Here's our belief at Nucamp is Google is probably the most beginner friendly environment for beginners to understand the
Yeah.
cloud and deploy to the cloud.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we're
Awesome.
starting together.
I'm glad you're saying it.
Yeah. So let's talk about those initiatives that you have right now around demand for cloud, because there's a ton of people out there that are probably in an unfortunate situation. They were working in tech, they may not have a job anymore, they have skills, they may not have the skills for Google Cloud. So what is your organization doing to help people that have cloud skills but not on Google kind of add those skills to their
Yeah.
resume and find a gig that will actually need Google?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally appreciate this is a tough economic climate, and I know it's in the tech industry. There's a lot of challenge there today, but if we can see the opportunity for, hey, I can learn a new skill, I can try a new thing. I think there's a lot to be said on what's available. Very recently, we published some new training, which was for folks who maybe they're already familiar with infrastructure on AWS or Azure. We created equivalent training content for you to understand how to do that with Google Cloud. Or how to use BigQuery, for example, if you're coming from some of the other data companies. And so we're very aware we want to build skills for folks that they can be agile and adaptable in job opportunities and where those opportunities lie today. Another thing that we're doing is quite fun. It's just we're doing our big launch on Monday, but I can tell you about it.
Are you sure? Is that Monday during I/O?
Oh no! Oh gosh, no! I can't tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Big reveal. I get fired. I'm sure. Yeah, no, we're doing some more, it's called arcade learning. So it's no cost, super fun, various levels, and again, you can complete learning, earn prizes, get swag, and again, we just want to make it a fun learning experience as well, and provide people the opportunity to kind of come back and learn a new skill. I don't know if growing up, I sometimes played arcade games, and we constantly go back and want to get to the next level. And we've recently just launched that arcade for Google Cloud skills and earning
arcade.
These the arcade. Yeah. So we'll have a blog out on Monday around that.
I want to arcade for Google Cloud skills.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So all will be revealed early next week. But yeah, I think that's another thing that's coming up that we're really just excited about. Broad accessibility and kind of fun ways to learn that are a little bit different maybe from some of the traditional ways of learning. And then we're also really aware YouTube is where a lot of people go to learn first, watch a video, tune in, and quickly learn the skills. So that's a space we really want to make sure we're making kind of training and development resources available.
I think it's pretty brilliant from a marketing and brand standpoint to have called it arcade. I think it, yeah, like Nathan wants to try it already. We'll
Oh,
post something on our Discord when we see it pop up
yeah,
on the
yeah,
post for
definitely. I'll
the
make sure
site.
you have it. Yes.
Uh, Further, wants to thank
Oh,
you very much for the opportunity.
yeah.
And then
Thank
Krista wants
you.
to share
Just need to hook up my.
MongoDB Atlas and Google Cloud. It's a big deal.
Oh, Krista, awesome.
And,
Wow,
and
you're the lab advocate. It's
yeah, there you
amazing.
go. What's really great is there's a lot of transferable skills between cloud providers, right? It's not like you're going to relearn everything from scratch.
No.
Kubernetes, MongoDB,
Yeah.
you mentioned BigQuery with kind of probably a similar technology from another. So you really need to understand how one particular provider is, providing the service. And some, of course, some is more proprietary than others, but there's a ton of things that you can transfer from one to the
Yeah.
other. And it really doesn't hurt to add a Google Cloud skills badge, a Google Cloud certification. If you come from another provider, you'll have an easier time getting into it. And again, in those times, where it's much harder now to find the next gig, it really is a leg up to do that.
Yeah.
And Google Cloud has been, in terms of growth, you've been skyrocketing. So I don't know how the economy, how the skills gap has evolved, and I'm
Mm.
guessing there's maybe, well, is there more demand than skills and people skilled right now? Like what is the outlook?
Yes.
So there
Yes.
is. So there you go,
Yeah,
right?
so
So
that's what we hear from our customers, from our partners, is like, we need the people with these skills. So that's why we're like saying, hey, like we would really love for you to like do this and upskill with our cloud, because our customers have invested in this technology. So there's roles available. Like they're looking for talent actively. And so I think it's a great opportunity. For your own career, and it's just kind of adding skills to the toolkit, right?
yeah,
And again, like, who would have known, 2020 and what it sort of forced the world to do, in terms of like technology and adoption of cloud technology, but we're in that position now.
yeah,
And so, how do we adapt our career and our skill set to be able to say, oh, like, this is the job that like I'm going to have for the next few years. And again, just being on top of those trends and like just try new technology. And I say that to myself as well. Sometimes you can get stuck and you're like, well, this is how we do things and this is how I know how to do things. But the more you can like try the new stuff and experiment, I think it's a really great thing to just say agile, adaptable, and you'll just like collect a whole bunch of skills for really growing demand for these roles for sure
that's
in cloud.
awesome. We
Mhm.
actually at the end of this stream, and
Oh
like
yeah.
most times it goes very fast, and it was really
Yeah.
great to have you on. I'd love to ask you, one final thought, one final recommendation for the audience. They are changing careers, they are getting into Google Cloud. What would you like to tell them, if you don't mind me asking you to do that right now?
Yeah, I think someone said to me early in my career that you're the CEO of Heather McCormick Inc. So you own your own career.
Mhm.
And it's up to you. And with all the great things, all the great resources that are available to you, it's up to you to determine like, this is the path I want to go down. These are the people that can help me get there. These are the skills I need to develop. But be as intentional as you can about that, and like sort of think through it and allow yourself the space to say like, here's where I want to go and here's how I'm going to get there. And look for people who I know, and I can speak from experience, will help partner with you to get you to where you want to take your career. So yeah,
Thank you so
own
much,
it for
Heather.
yourself.
That's coming from experience, and from the heart. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us,
Thank you for
sharing
having
your
me.
journey with the audience. Stay on. I'm going to wrap this up, but stay on, please.
Yeah.
And lots of people, really, you are your own boss.
Yes, exactly,
Right.
Nathan.
Love it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Please stay on. We'll chat later.
Awesome.